So this is an opportunity for the construction industry, the design professionals, contractors, to talk about some of the issues that may have been where you may have lost some information or where there may be some misinformation. And I know that there are a lot of questions. I've gotten questions from the legislators, I've gotten questions from the contractors, and so this is an opportunity for us to share information with you, to share information about the existing conditions in the prison, to share information about different construction delivery methods, to share information about the economic impact of construction, that it will have on our state, on the state of Alabama. So this is not an attempt to talk about anything other than to just share information. Because we have a tight schedule, I know that there are other committee meetings and other obligations from the legislators, and we want to be very respectful of your time. What we will do is we will go through the presentations, but we won't have time for questions. All of the presenters, however, have agreed to share their contact information. So if after this presentation, any legislators want to contact the presenters and have questions about information that they've shared, I will be glad to send you their email information, their contact information, so you can talk with them directly. So they very generously have volunteered to do that. I also want to thank the contractors, the construction industry, the design professionals in Alabama for their interest in this and for volunteering their time to come and share this information with you. They've taken time away from their businesses. They are very interested in the construction, and this would not have happened without you being here. So thank you for your time also and your interest in this. We'll start with the overview of the existing facilities. We have Larry Latimer from Rosser International. The design, budgeting, delivery, we have Joe Haynes and Martin Berglund. They are involved nationwide with prison construction, have been for almost over 40 years. So they bring a perspective of what's going on around the country. And then Heather Holliday from AIDT will talk about the economic impact on Alabama. So with that, I'll turn it over to Larry Latimer. Thank you.
Good morning. My name again is Larry Latimer. I work for Rosser International. In 2016, Commissioner Dunn requested the services of Goodwin, Mills, and Kaywood and the Rosser International team to do a condition assessment of your facilities. Over 4 months, we poured through every nook and cranny of those 17 major facilities in the Department of Corrections, logging thousands of man hours and writing reams of reports. Obviously, very difficult to share that amount of information in a compressed format for you in the next 15 or 20 minutes. But what I'd like to do in order to accomplish that is to tell you a story in pictures. And I think the pictures pretty much speak for themselves, because I'm going to try to get out of the way and let you look at what is going on in the Department of Corrections facilities. The issues that you're going to see in these pictures are systemic issues. We didn't pick the ones that were occurring only in an institution here and there. These things are happening at all 17 facilities of the Department of Corrections that we reviewed. Now, the conditions that you see are related to the age of the facilities, the accelerated deterioration of the facilities by severe overcrowding, inmate abuse of the facilities, inefficiencies of the original facility designs, which have been outdated, inappropriate building types for the particular purpose, for this kind of population, for inmate population. So what I want to be able to do is begin this, and I'm going to may have a little difficulty. I'm going to kind of step out to the side, and hopefully the mic will follow, so I can guide you with the pointer. There we go. Our methodology was pretty simple. We went to the facilities, we interviewed with the wardens and the maintenance staff. We got their perspective of what's going on in their facilities. We then went through every room, every crawl space, every tunnel in those facilities to look at what was going on there and what the conditions were, and then we took the building documents that the department possessed and we reviewed those in light of code compliance, and when that resulted in our reports. We had 10 types of experts involved, many people, but you can see those experts that we involved: architecture, healthcare, civil engineering, physical and electronic security experts, plumbing, mechanical, fire protection, electrical, and one that's not listed there, where it was necessary, we brought in a structural engineer to assist. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that age is a big problem with your facilities. And what you find here is, you have 6 facilities in this group that are 50 to 75 years old. Actually, Draper is going to celebrate its 79th year this year, 2017. 3 facilities in the 35 to 40 year group, and then you have 20, in the 20 to 30 year group, you have 8 facilities. Here's an interesting analysis of that. We started looking at the difference between those facilities: hardened facilities versus non-hardened facilities. I'm talking about the use of heavy building materials for prison environments, as opposed to using pre-engineered metal buildings that are not really designed to be able to take the abuse of a prison environment. And what we found is the older facilities, a preponderance of them were built with the hardened facilities. And as you can see, they're the ones that have been able to last 50 to 75 years, well beyond what we would normally call their useful life. And we have a few smattering of others here in the latter years, but this is the counterpart to that, the non-hardened, the metal building type facilities. All are concentrated in recent years, which seems to indicate a trend that they were looking at first cost as a primary objective instead of looking at the long-term cost of operating these facilities. Now, for reference sake, before I show you the photographs that indicate the conditions that we found in your facilities, I wanted you to see some comparative photos from other state agencies around the Southeast. This kitchen, and I'll admit this is a photo of a kitchen brand new, about to be opened in Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee facility. This kitchen is what a correctional kitchen should look like. That's a thing of beauty there. This is a cell in a 26-year-old facility in Georgia, a medical facility in Georgia. This is a restroom in a 59-year-old facility in Georgia, Men's State Prison in Milledgeville, Georgia. And this is the dormitory from that same unit. I just want you to get a reference before we go into seeing the conditions that we found in our study. Roofs are a problem statewide. You have a lot of metal roofs. These metal roofs have lap joints, and you have thousands and thousands of screw-affixed lap joints that have begun to leak over the years, and all of those leaks are ruining your interiors. Here's one at the same location where you can see they've tried to repair it several times. Every one of those little bumps that you see along there are screws that are backing out of the top of the roof and causing leak problems. Here at Tutwiler, they've given up on trying to keep the water from coming in, and they're gathering it in tarps under the roof and piping it off. We're starting to see some deterioration of a structural beam because of roof leaks at Donaldson. At Holman, we're having standing water on the housing units. This is St. Clair. It's a complete deterioration of the edge flashing and almost the ruining of the gutter system here at St. Clair, also on the housing unit. Exterior envelopes, we found similar problems. This is an inappropriate use of material. This is a synthetic stucco material over insulation. You can see it's right next to a security grade door, and the inmates have just torn it completely off the side of the building. Windows nearly falling out of their frame at Limestone Correctional. At Donaldson, the use of pre-engineered metal buildings getting damaged, seams coming apart, doors being hung in such a way that these types of buildings can't support security level doors, and they're being tied open. This is a window at Donaldson in a hardened unit where the bottom of the seal is completely rusted away. And here at Draper, a contrast to that window, this is a brand new window, and a fine piece of equipment, but we got it sitting in a 78-year-old wall that's falling apart. This is at Fountain Correctional Facility. This is the exterior of the chapel. You're seeing all kinds of cracks in the CMU. This one, we really question the validity of the structure of this facility. This is a close-up of the same, where you see spalling of the CMU, cracks going up through the structural components of the outside of that building. Easterling, Ventress, and Bibb County are your three newest facilities in the 20 to 25 year range. And they're pre-engineered metal buildings, and you're starting to begin to see the complete deterioration of the base metal and the purlins. Similarly, this is the outside of Ventress, where they put a security bar or a security screen over the window, knowing that this facility was not designed to be able to house inmates, so they had added security measures, but the frame of that is just almost completely rusted away. A metal panel is down here where an inmate was able to bust through rusted sheet metal on the outside of that pre-engineered metal building. The inside of the same window structure showing the rust away at the purlin there. Towers are a problem statewide. This is a Draper tower entry door, nearly gone by deterioration and rust. This is a tower also at Draper where they used a wooden structure on top of the metal deck. You can nearly put your foot right through that wall. Railings failures that they've been repairing over time. At St. Clair, the weather seal of the roof is gone, so they're using tarps to try to keep weather out as they occupy that. And here, a roof leak has caused a problem with the cornice nearly falling off of this tower at Holman facility. Miscellaneous interior items, just for points of interest. We're seeing this kind of condition where you have a hole in your office floor. This is at Tutwiler. This is under the showers where the leakage through the concrete slab has caused the lime to leach out of the concrete. You can see exposed aggregate and reinforcing metal. That floor is a failing floor. This is another example of a pre-engineered metal building problems that you're having. This is the laundry at Fountain, where the bottom edge of the sheet metal siding is nearly gone. Also, there's rusting away at the door. You can see daylight under the door and under the siding. The weather seal of that building is gone. This is some photographs of some kitchens throughout the state. Chronic problems at your kitchens. This is kind of an interesting photo, something that you don't see every day. Our team was actually at this facility when the fire alarm panel caught fire and no alarms went off. So it's a pretty interesting photo just to look at and wonder about. This one is a failing ceiling at Bibb Correctional Facility, your newest facility in the system. This is in the kitchen, and this is caused by roof leaks at Bibb. This one is at Donaldson Correctional Facility. Donaldson's about 35 years old, and you're starting to see a lot of problems here in this kitchen. This failing of the floor systems is universal. Almost everywhere we're seeing that problem. Only one good kitchen in the state, and that was at Staten. And that's because they built a brand new kitchen in 2010 at Staten, and it's still in pretty good shape. So here you have ferrous metal roof hoods, kitchen hoods. This particular one is so rusted that they can't use it anymore because it drops rust into the food. This is another portion of the Donaldson kitchen. What you're seeing here is not just a failure of the tile system. You're seeing a failure of the grout base. You're seeing a failure of the concrete under the grout base. And what you're actually seeing here, which is a little difficult, it's a dark part of a photograph, is you're seeing the compacted soil underneath the floor itself. This is another part of the Donaldson kitchen where the humidity and poor ventilation keeps paint from sticking to the wall. Another problem in Donaldson, I don't know if you've ever seen a concrete floor wear out. Probably haven't. But this is a condition just because of the high use of these facilities, the overcrowding demands, almost 24 hours operations of the kitchen. And this is in the scullery area where now the kitchen floor is so deteriorated that you're seeing reinforcing wire and aggregate exposed in this portion of the kitchen floor. A lot of age and a lot of abuse, more so than is normal for a facility of this size and type. Kitchens at Draper, they have similar problems. You're seeing the constant floor issues, failure of the floors. They have additional problems at Draper in that the drains on the floors are collapsed, and so when they have water on the floor, they have to use mop buckets to get it out. There's a couple more shots of the Draper kitchen and the issues there where the floor is completely gone. This is at Hamilton Aged and Infirm, where they've converted an existing facility that was really a care facility for the elderly, and they have now made, this is a sheetrock wall. This wet environment has encouraged the growth of mold, and the tile is coming off the wall, as you can see. This is glazed block at Holman that's literally falling out of the wall, and the kitchen's there. Toilets and showers experience the same problem. This is at Tuck Bottom. On the other side of this wall is that shower that I showed you just a few moments ago. This is a failure of the dormitory floor as a result of those problems with that floor in the shower, leakage that occurred there. We'll move through these pretty fast. Just examples of floor failures in the toilets and showers around the Staten Correctional Facility. Again, at Staten, we're seeing pipe chases where vent stacks have been removed. We've got a leaking water pipe right here. These two chases are filled with water in the bottom. We're having more floor failures here, non-ADA approved fixtures. Here the same thing at Elmore, non-ADA fixtures and floor failures at that location. At Draper, they've given up on the plumbing in the wall and they've gone to doing surface plumbing, and we have a huge hole here in the corner of the pipe chase. At J.O. Davis, you're seeing broken off shower heads. One thing you'll notice is that all of these fixtures are residential grade fixtures, so the inmates have no trouble tearing those apart. This is a notable effort to give extra support to vitreous fixtures in one of the facilities in Elmore, but now the support itself has become a problem because of the inappropriate materials that were used. This is an old urinal trough, no longer meets code and in very rough condition. Here we have a head that was broken off and a faulty shower valve that's causing water to flow at this facility in Fountain. Again, in Fountain, a failure of these glazed blocks at the pipe chase. Dormitories, Bibb, your newest facility, Bibb, has significant roof problems. Right here in the dormitory, we're having a failure of insulation system due to roof leaks. This is a closer shot of the same thing, immediately adjacent to where those inmates sleep every day. This is a conversion, and there's a lot of these in the state, where a existing industrial building was converted to housing. This is B dorm. It used to be an old canning plant, and this is just about 350, 400 inmates in this one space. As you can see, another shot of the same space. Structural failures of the mezzanine at Donaldson, rusted stair treads at Kilby. We're seeing here along the edge of the mezzanine, we're starting to see failures. This is a close-up of this area right down through here. This is at Holman. The stringers for this staircase have now been so rusted they're not even touching the floor any longer. At the top of that same staircase, starting to lose its connection with the landing, and the landing this grating at the landing is rusted. That's at home. And civil problems, I don't think I even need to tell you anything about that. I think everybody would recognize that you could not possibly operate any of that equipment in that pit. This is a pump station, and what you're seeing in here is trash that gets into the system because of inmates flushing trash. It's a very common problem for facilities throughout the nation, but this stuff finds its way into your local providers of waste treatment. They find you then for this trash because they have to get it out of their system. Having ponding water, undermining fences and undermining foundations. Physical electronic security. Electronic security, this is a fire alarm at Kilby that's been long out of service and then scavenged. Of the 17 facilities we reviewed, we did not find a single one with a working fire alarm system. This is a serious code violation. It's a safety violation for inmates and staff alike. This is a control room at St. Clair. where they've had to resort to using pans to keep the control equipment safe from dripping leaks, roof leaks. This is the kind of conditions that a lot of your locking control panels are in. They can't even tell. They're adding notes to the panel to try to tell what they're controlling. Here's another example at BIB, your newest facility, where they've used a Sharpie to make notes about what they're controlling. And this is a problem that we're seeing nationwide, where inmates are learning how to defeat these locks. And these are pretty heavy-duty locks here, but there are a number of ways to defeat them, particularly if you don't have working control systems. And so what they resorted to do is using slide bolts with padlocks. This is a serious violation also of the fire code. A similar situation where they used a grill door and padlock to do the same thing. You have a lot of breakage of security glazing throughout the state. This is an opening where inmates now, where they covered over with expanded metal mesh, and now the inmates are tearing that apart, and they generally tear that apart to make shanks out of that stuff. Plumbing, we've gone through some of the plumbing. I'm going to move through this fast. This is a water heater. You see this kind of failure throughout. Again, plumbing chases that have water in the bottom constantly loaded with water. You have missing fixtures here. This is at Draper, probably the worst one that we saw. This is sewage water here in the bottom, and it's running out the opening of the pipe chase to the outside. No insulation, rusted piping, rusted and failed valves on plumbing systems. This is a water casing at Tutwiler, again rusted almost to failure. Rusted gas piping at Donaldson. This is a pipe chase at Draper, in which all of the vent stacks have been removed because you can't get back to servicing the equipment deeper without removing the vent stacks, and naturally they don't get put back on. Fountain Correctional Facility, you see a hole in the sanitary line, more holes in the sanitary lines at Kilby. Also at Staten, this is a vertical sanitary line that's completely broken in two, and sewage is falling directly out onto the floor in this particular pipe chase. Electrical, we're seeing a lot of problems with electrical, primarily because these facilities were not built for the current kinds of demands that we have with electrical. So this is pretty common. More common is the use of power strips. Just one power strip connected to another power strip, connected to another power strip, in order to be able to service the needs of the facility. This is the kitchen electrical panel at Draper. You can see the condition it's in. It's horribly rusted. You don't have to be an expert to know that this is unsafe. There are openings in the panel where there should be covers. That makes it unsafe for workers. This panel is so old, parts are no longer available for it. It's completely obsoleted. This is a similar condition at Fountain, the kitchen electrical panel. And this is the tunnel at Pullman. These transformers are high voltage transformers, and you can see from the rust how high the water has been on these transformers. All of the high voltage connections for these transformers are made in the bottom of the transformers. So that means the high voltage part of this has been underwater from time to time. Here's another shot of the same tunnel. I don't know who those brave people are that decide to get down there and stand in that water. Cost. Okay, you may be asking yourself by now, all right, what would it cost if we decided that we wanted to fix all of this? Well, we have done a tremendous amount of work to come to a probable cost. It's about $450 million. By the time you were actually able to design and complete that construction, you would be in a position where these costs would be closer to $500 million. And let me tell you what you wouldn't get, even if you decided to fix those. You would not be able to resolve your overcrowding issues, which would then again accelerate the deterioration of those new construction. You would not resolve your staffing inefficiency issues. You would not resolve your programmatic deficiencies statewide, and you would not resolve the unwholesome atmosphere in which you're asking staff to work, which triggers to your issues with attracting staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry. What Larry did not mention is that he worked for 20 years at the Georgia DOC, so he also has an inside track on what they're doing in other state DOC departments. So next we'll hear from Joe, and he has been working in corrections for 45 years. I hope that So he brings a lot of
At
experience.
least I don't show it. Make sure I get this working. Carrie's going to help me if the clicker doesn't work, or if my mic isn't working. I usually talk loud enough that I don't need the mic, but what we wanted to do in a very brief time is give an example of large-scale prison projects that we personally have been involved with for different clients, federal government, state governments, and even the private sector. So, I'm not sure to get that working, Eric. Is it right?
Go ahead, I'll do it.
All right. 4 parts to this. A brief introduction about myself and Martin and our background. 3 examples of large-scale prisons. A very brief discussion on putting budgets together for projects. And then a very simple discussion on the delivery methods. And I noticed that a representative from DVIA is handing out some very detailed information. Martin and I are very familiar with DVIA. We're both certified professionals, been through the training program for design-build projects. So I'm going to start out with who we are. I'll go to the next slide. My name is Joe Haynes. I'm an architect with DLR Group and have significant experience majoring just in this building type. Martin, who has over 20 years, he and I work together. And we work for DLR Group, a large AE firm, nationwide practice with a specialty in criminal justice projects. Martin and I happen to specialize in prison and jail construction. A little bit of background on us. We're familiar with designing large-scale prisons and have been for a long time. I'm going to start out with a federal project. Back in the early 90s, the Federal Bureau of Prisons retained our firm to develop a new concept. They wanted to have a consolidated facilities to where they had all of their classifications on one site instead of being spread out. They saw the economies of scale associated with this and the opportunity to do shared services and bring forward some cost savings in their prison construction program. So we were retained to develop this prison site in Colorado. It's about 600 plus acres, but it has the administrative maximum security facility. I'm going to use the pointer. A camp, medium security, a penitentiary, and the Supermax. You've heard it called the Supermax, a replacement for Alcatraz. This is the one-of-a-kind, worst of the worst Bureau of Prisons inmates they have to deal with, and there's only one of these built in the U.S. at this point in time. So we created prototype designs and site planning for this in a macro sense, large-scale consolidated. So they have a prison camp. Now this is low security, essential services, industries. These are the inmate workers that work in the other facilities. So they're on the site, they're close by, but it's a low security, no fencing associated with that for that particular classification. Now you go up to the Federal Correctional Institute. That's a medium security facility. Like Aliceville, you have one here in Aliceville, prototype design. You'll see it's campus, housing ringed by central services and a perimeter fence. Very standard in the FBOP prototype design. They've replicated these in many different states across the country. U.S. Penitentiary, this is their high security. You'll now notice they have guard towers. Now these are FBOP standards, guard towers, high security. We built a couple of these through Design Build in Florida, Coleman, Florida. There's 2 of these facilities that's exactly like this. And again, it's on the same site, but these are standardized, economies of scale, prototype design, familiar if you work at one facility in this state and you're transferred to another facility, you know what the buildings look like. So there's some intentional design aspects of large-scale projects on the building program. This is the administrative max. This is what they call the super max. It's where their most difficult to manage inmates are housed. And again, you'll see a much tighter complex here. Now, this is not spread out. There's housing units, support components, towers, and a perimeter fence, and a small-scale site. The individuals who are housed here, they don't get to move around too all much because they are confined in their cell 23 hours out of the day, 1 hour of recreation. So this is, if you're doing time here, you're kind of a bad character in terms of the Bureau of Prisons. Another example of a large-scale project is a project we did for the State Department of Corrections in Oregon. Now, this particular project has some similarities to what you're considering here in the state of Alabama. You have an aging female facility, just like Oregon did, and they wanted to consolidate all of their classifications, minimum, medium, maximum security women, in one single location, and also include a reception diagnostic. Every female that comes in the system in the state of Oregon has to go through here for their assessment reception. So this particular project had some unique features that they asked us to address. And that was a difficult and challenging site. And some economies of scale that came into this to save money was to have a compressed design. So these housing units, you can see, are all close together, support facilities on the other side of a central corridor that's enclosed. So inclement weather is taken care of, and nobody has to move outside in a rainstorm in this particular facility. But their minimum security compound that has all the central services and support workers for this facility are outside the compound, but close by. So this was our solution to their request to have a small site. They had expensive site development costs, and to minimize construction of perimeter fencing and building perimeter, we come up with this particular response for the state of Oregon for their females. It doesn't mean that everybody does it this way, but it's an example of a large-scale economies associated with bigger prisons for a specialty population for the females. The third example is a project that we were retained for. It's a private sector project, but the people who are held in this facility are state of California prisoners. But this particular project has it's a large scale 3,200 bed. It has some significant design parameters in that it is created in 3 different phases. I'll go to a site plan. This works. I'll go to a site plan. There's 3 compounds, and it was constructed in an accelerated schedule because the client who was going to be using this space had a date specific for occupancy. So the design and construction team scheduled design and construction so they could occupy these 1,000-bed compounds sequential to meet a ramping up inmate delivery from their client. But that does have some central services, and it has some semi-autonomous shared services. And it's a relatively compact site, but it's decentralized, so you can have different classifications in this compound, this compound, this compound, but still have the economies of a smaller site around a singular entity. Some of the considerations that you may be looking at for your potential prison program. Developing budget. This is a very sensitive topic because when you appropriate money for a building program, you only have one bite of the apple. So developing a budget you have to be aware of the different components. It's much more than just construction cost. Yes, that's what you see compared. That's what it costs to build this facility here. But as you appropriate money or you're doing a project, whether it's a state facility or private sector or federal, your project costs are over and above your construction costs. For property acquisition, legal costs, professional fees, all other kind of things that come in there. So developing a budget, be aware that there's more components. So when you make an appropriation or get a budget approved, it has to include all these costs, and you really can't go back and ask, well, we forgot this and forgot that. So we're not, we're just making sure that when developing project budgets for large-scale projects or any kind of building program, you have to make sure you're aware of all the costs associated with it from the beginning to the end. I'm going to have Martin go over some very brief project delivery aspects. I know that their DBIA has distributed the handout. It was much more detailed information and statistics about the design build project delivery method compared to other delivery methods.
Thanks, Joe.
You need a pointer?
No, I'll be good. I'll be good with a pointer. Like Joe said, we've been asked to talk briefly about a couple of different delivery methods of how you can go about from starting your project to completion. So the most common one still is the traditional design bid build, where the owner retains an architect. The architect works with the owner and develops a program and a design and takes the design to completion to bid documents. Then the project goes out for bid. Really any contractor can bid on the job, and the lowest bidder gets the project. Some advantages of that is that, like I said, it's long history, it's been around forever. Everyone knows how it works. It's competitive because you're competing on price. And the owner has high control of the design because the design is fully developed by the owner's architect before bidding the job. It can take a little longer to do this because the job has to be completely designed before construction can start. There's also no builder input on the design because the architect is working based on his experience and does not have access to talking with contractors that can provide input on how best to build things, come up with solutions. And you, like I said, you have no control over who the contractor is going to be. It stipulates the one with the lowest bid gets the job at bid day. And then I'll talk about design build, which is kind of the fastest trending delivery method currently. It's been growing all over the country. And a lot of states have now passed legislation where design build is allowed. And I don't know specifically in Alabama, I don't think it maybe not be yet, but I think they're working on it. And here you have several advantages. You can encourage the inclusion of small businesses, minority-owned businesses, or special or locally owned businesses as well. There is contractor input on the design because the contractor and the designer, the architect and engineer, they work together as a team. And another benefit that carries with it as well is that there's only one point of contact for the owner. Owner signs one contract, whereas in the design bid build, they would have a contract with the architect and a contract with the owner or with the contractor. It also offers some good opportunities for innovation because these design build teams of architects and contractors are competing against each other. So you got to come up with a couple of different solutions to the same design challenge. It gives the owner the ability to select based on value. They don't necessarily have to take the lowest price because they're also going to be grading these teams based on their qualifications and past performance. Some disadvantages to design build is that it's relatively expensive for the design build teams to compete. Architect has to take the design to a pretty decent level for the owner or contractor to develop a price. It can also be a little more difficult to change things once the project is underway. So here's a little bit how it works. You see in the graphic on the left, the design build entity, which is the architect and contractor, has one contract with the owner. And this is kind of the purest form of design build, if you so will. What we see more and more, though, especially on larger complex projects, is where the owner retains a separate independent owner's rep. There'd be a consultant that would help the owner look out for the owner's interest. So the design build entity will still be the contractor and an architect of record, but the owner here has an owner's rep, where the owner's rep develops the specifications for which the design build teams are going to be bidding. This graph here tried to show some of the schedule advantages of design build versus design bid build. The color bars are just kind of conceptual, but you know the red would be the project development, design, or development. The green would be project design. As you can see on the left side there, you can't start the construction, which is the blue bar. The construction can't start until the design is completely finished. Whereas here on the design build method, the construction can actually start before the design is completely finished, giving you the ability to tighten up the schedule of the project. And with that, I think we'll turn it over to Heather. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Heather Holliday. She's going to talk about the economic impact of the construction in the state of Alabama.
Good morning. Now the fun part. I'm not going to put you to sleep with all of this, I promise. Numbers are numbers and sometimes can make you look like a deer in headlights. I personally don't want to look at that this morning. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I have been with AIDT now for 12, going on 13 years. Prior to being with AIDT, I was with the Alabama Department of Corrections. I did research in that division and worked very closely with a lot of the wardens, writing policies, procedures, legislative proposals, all of that. So I do have a little bit of background, a little bit of knowledge. I have been in every one of the prisons in the state of Alabama. Not a fun thing to see a lot of times, but I do have experience in that. I have a master's degree in community and economic development from Penn State, so I'm well aware of all sides of this gamut. Just to give you a little bit what I did, I focused on the whole state as a whole, and I focused on one industry, the industry that would be impacted the most by adding jobs in construction, because if there's going to be construction jobs across the state, it will impact the state as well as the smaller communities. I do have the ability to create impacts on communities all the way down to zip code level, all the way up to multiple states, all the way to the United States. I also have the ability to do it on multiple industries. So if I know the amount of jobs that are going to be inserted into each industry, I can go in and plug those numbers out and they're going to come out. I'm not an economist, so I use a system called IMSI, which is economic modeling system, and I have that ability to input numbers and it to input numbers back out. So there is no doubt that these will be accurate numbers. I'm not going to fluff the numbers because I don't have that ability. I have the ability to put them in and it to spit out what the statistical ramifications are, okay? I am looking at a sky-high view of this for Alabama, and it is a scenario. So let's look at this. What I did was I looked at this one industry, commercial and industrial, excuse me a little bit, industrial building construction. And this information is as early as of the last quarter that I'm sitting in. In a couple of weeks, I will be flipping over to the first quarter of 2017. So this data is as accurate as of December, okay? Currently, this industry has a little over 9,000, almost 10,000 people that work in that industry, that claim to be in that industry. As you can see, over the next 5 years, 1,068 jobs will be lost in that industry across our state. In other words, a 13.2% decline in that industry, that one industry, okay? 84.2% of that industry are males that are in the range of the ages of 35 to 54. That pretty much can tell you that's heads of households, sons, brothers, etc. That also means that 1,068 jobs that are going to be lost, those are going to be lost salaries, connecting that to lost tax dollars. So we want to build that industry. We want to add to that industry. There are approximately 772 payroll businesses in the state in this industry, but that does not include the small businesses. These are our massive industries across the state of Alabama that claim that NAICS code to the federal government, okay? So small businesses can be anything up to, I think it's like 10 and less employees. So you're talking about these mom and pop construction companies. There are thousands. So just to give you that. There was a budget that was given to me, a budget number of $800 million. In calculating that back and doing the statistics backwards, looked at that is going to calculate and cover about 4,000 jobs paying $22 an hour. That is a good paying construction job, just a heads up. So, let's see what it does if we add 4,000 jobs to this one industry, okay? It's not working. Okay. Change in earnings. If we add 4,000 jobs, that first block up there shows you the change in earnings. And as you can see, that's millions of dollars that are going to be impacted across the state. The second one is 7360. You can't see that from there. That's if you add 4,000 jobs, you're basically going to add another 84% indirectly, directly, and induced, okay? That's across the state. That 1,068 jobs that we lost on the first screen, that means that that will not exist. That 1,068 loss was only if we do nothing and we don't add anything, any jobs, anywhere, okay? This is inserting 4,000 jobs to construct prisons. This is the impact it'll have. Okay, change in earnings, broken down a little bit. You heard me say in direct, indirect, and induced. This is that. What you're looking at is when you initiate 4,000 jobs, the initial impact is going to be almost $250 million. That's a lot of money across the state. Directly, because you included that $247 million, those 4,000 people, they're going to start shopping, they're going to start eating, they're going to start vacationing. So directly, you're going to impact another $42 million on top of the $247 you just did. Indirect, remember, they got to eat, they got to shop, they got to have vacations. Indirectly, you're going to impact several other industries across the state at a vision of $11.4 million. Induced. Induced means that, okay, well, if I have impacted direct and indirect, induced comes because you've got to have a delivery service deliver some package to one of those citizens. Induced, again, multiple industries that are going to be impacted. So induced, you're looking at $76 million that's going to be impacted. Oop, hello. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's working, sometimes it ain't. Adding 4,000 jobs. The initial 4,000 jobs is put in. Directly, you are going to impact another 1,000 jobs. So if you're creating 4,000 in one industry, across multiple other industries, you're going to add another 1,000 jobs. Because who's going to feed these people? Who's going to house these people? Who's going to do all these other things that these people are going to need? Indirect, 270, and induced, another 2,000 jobs. These are all jobs that you're adding. This is all across the state of Alabama. Most of these prisons are in rural communities. Construction workers, where are they going to stay? Where are they going to eat? Adding money to the incomes. Dang it. There it goes. Okay, I'm just going to quit touching that. Yeah. So, again, like back at the first screen, we were talking about tax dollars being lost. Here they're gained. Remember, we're looking at one industry. There are multiples that are going to be touched. Adding 4,000 jobs to one industry, you're looking at almost $10 million in local taxes across the state. State taxes, almost $9 million. Federal taxes, which is your exercise taxes on goods and services via the feds, $6 million added to it. Okay? So, in that calculation of the $800 million budget, if we are adding 4,000 jobs, about $180 million of that is going to be covered for the labor cost of this. So if we go in and add $180 million, I was just playing around just to kind of see what would happen. Oh my word. So you're going to add directly another $30.89 million to that, to those salaries. Indirect, $8 million will be impacted. Induced, $55 million, almost 56. Okay? last thought. All of those industries I keep talking about, so I went and tried to figure out, well, who would be impacted? Who would be the top industries impacted? There's the list right there, because those are construction industries. Remember, the only one that we looked at was construction of the building. That doesn't count any suppliers, that doesn't count any masters of their skills, nothing. So I decided to go back and pull all of those. So now you're seeing all of the industries that will be directly impacted. So if I go back and I pull an economic impact on any of these, you've got the impacts for all of that, as well as that one industry that we looked at, all those millions of dollars. So you're talking about a huge, huge impact to the state as a whole, okay, at a sky-high level. And that's it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of our presenters. I think they did a great job in this interview of everything. Again, I appreciate everybody coming. I know that over the next coming weeks during the session, there'll be many questions, so if anybody needs contact information, again, all of our speakers have volunteered to provide their contact information. You can email them directly or contact them directly with your questions. And thank you all for coming.